All right, so for today's activity, which is called Sunlight's Effects on Earth's Surface, we are going to be talking about the different materials that make up Earth's surface. So, what is Earth made out of? And my student could say there's trees, houses, buildings, dirt, the ocean, and those are very good responses. But we will be going through the specifics of what Earth's surface is made out of. So, what covers the Earth's surface? So, I know my students have said buildings, trees, houses, but those three things that I just mentioned are on top of Earth's surface. They are able to be removed, and they are not grounded on the surface. So we'll go through the first row, and I'll ask you guys to raise your hands and tell me what you think covers Earth's surface in each picture. So for the first picture, what do you think covers Earth's surface? My student would say water. For the second picture, they could say trees because there are trees in the pictures, but my student could also say dirt and rocks, which is a very good answer. In the second picture, my student could say, in the third picture, my student could say bushes and rocks and dirt, and they could say the word desert if they knew what that meant, but we'll stick to dirt and rocks, which are really good observations. And then in the fourth picture, which is down below on the second row to the left, I would ask what makes up Earth's surface in that picture. And my student could say sand because it looks like it's a sand in the desert. And I would say very good. And then in the last picture, they could observe so many different things, such as the water. Water is a good observation. We have rocks, boulders, leaves, trees, and I would assure them and correct them and say that the trees are on Earth's surface. They are growing on, but they do not make up Earth's surface. Leaves that are on the floor fall down from the trees, so they are part of the tree and not Earth's surface. They could cover Earth's surface, but they're not a part of it. Okay. So this says, how does the sun affect the Earth's surface? And I could ask my students what they think just to gain their understanding of what the question is. And they could say, the sun helps the trees grow. The trees need sunlight. The sun helps the temperature heat up. The sun helps people see at night. And we learned all of this through our book that we read yesterday on what the Earth does to help our planet. So very good observations. The one observation that I would be looking for is that the sun helps to heat up the Earth, or the sun helps to give us warmth. On this side it says, how does the sun affect these materials from Earth's surface? So this is what we're going to be talking about today. I would explain to my students that we are going to be exploring and observing how the sun affects the materials on Earth's surface that we are using today. So these materials would be, the first picture, rocks. We're going to be learning about soil, and then we're going to be learning about water. And I would ask, where do you guys see each of these materials in your everyday life or at home? And my student could say, in my mom's garden, in the ocean, which could be for water. The garden would be for soil. Rocks could be at the park. They could be on my walk home, at my grandparents' house, any place. I would just want them to get thinking about where these objects are in their daily life that they would see, and allow them to understand that these items and these materials are what makes up and what covers our Earth's surface. Okay, so what we have is these are our materials that we are going to be using today. So in station 1, which would be the top left station, it's not showing the station number, but those are our cups, and we're going to be what we're going to be doing is we are going to be taking each of the materials that we are going to be learning about, and we're going to be taking their temperature and seeing if that temperature changes from the morning when we start taking it in a couple of minutes to the afternoon. Around lunchtime is when we will take the last temperature check, and we are going to be seeing if the temperature changes from these two time periods. And one other thing, we are going to be having some of our materials in the shade and some of our materials in the sun. So we are going to be investigating how much and if at all the materials heat up when they are in the shade from the morning to the afternoon, and if they heat up, if anything, from the morning to the afternoon when they are placed in the sun. So the materials we are going to be using are the rocks, which is at station 2, that is labeled on our picture. Station 3 is our soil, and then station 4 is our water. So those are the materials we are going to be using today. We're also going to be having cups, which is station 1, which is in the left top corner. Those are going to be our cups that we are going to be placing the materials in. We are going to be also using a temperature gun, which is this little gadget in here. What you do is you place it, it's just like the temperature gun that we use to check each other's temperatures early in the morning when we get to school. You just place it to an object, just like a regular temperature gun when you place it to your forehead, and then show you what the temperature is. This will be for the object, so we're going to be placing them in the sun or the shade, and we're going to be taking their initial temperature, waiting for that number, and then writing it down. So what we'll be doing is we're going to be filling out a tracking sheet, and this is an example I have. So this is my teacher example. So for example, the rocks, and I have a little sunshine, little sun in the top right corner, because that is showing me that the rocks are in the sun. This is for the sun materials. So the rocks are in the sun. At the beginning, the temperature is cool, or the temperature seems to be low. That means that the rocks are cool. You guys are going to be observing and taking these measurements. That way I can see how well you guys are doing at differentiating hot and warm, cold and cool. Just wanting to make sure you guys know how to tell the difference between hot and cold. And then in the second column, we have temperature at the end, which is where we'll be measuring the temperature at lunch, after lunch. And if you see this, it shows that the temperature at the end is hotter than the temperature at the beginning. And so in the beginning, the rocks were cool. And then after lunch, the rocks ended up being hot. What we'll be doing during our investigation is I'm going to have you be writing down the temperatures. So it'll just be an additional data collection. You'll be writing down the temperature numbers. That way you guys can remember how to fill in the thermometers. So that's my teacher example. All right. So now we will get started with our predictions on what we think is going to happen um, when we place the materials that make up Earth's surface in the sun. So this is where my students would tell me what they think is going to happen. So they could say the rocks and the soil will be hotter than the water, just as I placed on my prediction board. They could also say that all of the materials will be the same temperature at the end that they were in the beginning. Or they could even say all of the materials heat up the same. So even though they were different temperature in the morning, they're all in the same temperature in the afternoon, meaning they're around the same heat temperature. And you could also go on by creating a chart, like a tally mark chart, where you can write down what the students come up with. So I could ask my students, what will the materials, uh, what will the temperatures be like in the afternoon? Will they be the same or different? And my students can raise their hands. And when I say, will they be different? They can raise their hands, I'll count the hands, and we can tally mark. When they'll be the same, I can count their hands and they raise their hands, I'll count their hands, and then I'll tally mark those points as well.